running.
Thank you. It is 6 o'clock on the council's clock, so we are beginning our meeting. Welcome everybody. The first item on the agenda is the evacuation procedure. Everyone in the room, I believe, does understand that, and it's clearly written on the agenda, so I'm not going to go through that. Apologies for absence. We have received Councillor Shepherd, who is not very well today. Item 3, declarations of interest. There are those printed. Are there any additions to that are relevant to today?
Yeah, Chair, just one that's missing for me is I do rent property out in the Borough, and that's got to be added.
Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, are we happy to confirm the minutes of having held the 22nd of May?
Yes, Chair.
Is that agreed?
Yes, Chair.
Right, sign those. Public consultation. We have people wishing to speak on every item, so we'll take them in the order they are in. The first one being the resident involvement strategy. Councillor Watkins, do you want to introduce that, please?
Yeah, so it'd be recommended to Council that the resident involvement strategy 2019-2022 be adopted for inclusion in the Council as framework. It's to provide a single strategic framework outlining the Council's commitment to involving and working with local communities, particularly tenants and leaseholders. The options are to support recommendations within the report or not to support the recommendations within the report. The report is added for you. You don't want to read through the whole report, do you? Sure.
No, that's fine, just an introduction at this stage.
And so the report is as before you, and I'll take any questions on it.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything there?
We do have somebody who's indicated they wish to speak on this, but they're not actually present in the room at the moment. That's Councillor Kandara. So we will then go into open debate on this particular strategy. Anyone wish to make any comments?
Only Chair, that I think it's a good refresh of something that we've been doing now for a number of years with our residents, and I know they do appreciate it, to have, in a way, a say. So I welcome the report and the update.
Excellent. I think I would support endorsing this. It's vital we work with our residents. It's something that we've done over a considerable period of time, and I think we should continue to do that. So are we all happy to agree the recommendations?
Yes, Chair.
Yep. I don't see any negative comments in regard to that, so that is then adopted. Item 7 is the General Fund Housing Revenue Account, etc. on page 30. Just a brief introduction in regard to this. The report sets out the final outturn position for the General Fund, HRA and capital programmes for 2018-19. The General Fund outturn position is a slightly increased contribution to reserves of 37k, and key variances are shown at Appendix A. The main challenges for the year have been an increased demand for temporary accommodation and higher refuse and cleansing costs, mainly due to the new recycling contract which started in October 2018. These have been offset by increased business rate growth, additional income from NAB sale and vacancy savings across the council. As part of the final accounts process, the council's earmarked reserves are reviewed to ensure that they remain at an acceptable and prudent level. A breakdown of the council's reserves at 31st of March is given in section 4 and Appendix B. In summary, these are 7 million for revenue and 1.9 million for capital, and Cabinet are asked to approve these balances. The final outturn on the HRA is an increased surplus compared to a budget of 28,000, which is largely due to salary savings and reduced spend on materials, partly offset by increased spend on external contractors. Further details on the HRA variances are shown in Appendix C. The HRA has a general balance of 12.2 million at the end of March, with earmarked reserves of 7 million, and these will be used to support the business plan in future years. A summary of the capital programme for the General Fund and HRA are given at Appendix D. There's been some slippage on the capital programme for the General Fund and HRA, and spend has been reprofiled into 1920. Cabinet are therefore asked to approve the revised capital programme, shown at Appendix E, prior to submission to Council. The Council is required to complete its statement of accounts for 18-19 before the end of May. We've achieved this deadline, and external audit of our accounts is already underway. The actual recommendations are shown at section 2. Can I just ask, Chris, you are the only member of the public we have. Can you hear okay?
Yes,
I'm struggling with my voice
yes,
today,
I can hear you
so
perfectly
I
fine.
just wanted to make sure you could hear. Thank you for that, Chris. We do then have two public speakers, Councillor Kondaka, who is not with us, and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair and Cabinet. Firstly, I'll draw members' attention to my interest as a Director of NABCEL, and I would echo the comments of yourself, Councillor Jackson, about the good work that NABCEL does. We do so on a cross-party basis, and we always do it in the interest of residents and trying to support our services. And I am pleased, both as a councillor and a director, that we are making such a contribution towards the council's budget. Starting on the positive side, on page 34, it is pleasing to see that we have increased the amount of money that we have generated through the business rates retention, which is something that this government is actually introducing. Despite being constantly told that everything is being cut, there are actually some good stories coming from central government and what we are allowed to do, and the business rate retention is there for all to see, an increase on the net income of £410,000. And also something that is particularly pleasing, again from a policy initiative from central government, which has been fully funded, is the changes to the rate system for smaller businesses, smaller and medium-term enterprises. And we've seen a variance which normally would be a bad variance of £563,000. But in these terms, I believe it's a good variance in that we're helping more businesses stay within Nuneaton and Bedworth and being able to trade and keep people employed within Nuneaton and Bedworth. So I think those are positive aspects from the report. But moving towards Appendix A, there are some concerns which I have. For example, on the Civic Hall, the increase in the cafe service of £19,000, when it was deliberately the policy at the budget setting process that you were reducing that service, and then you went against that, and I believe that should have been actually referred back to council. It was a council decision that was voted upon, and I think it's a shame that we voted on one thing and then the executive decided to do another. And again, on the reduced bar income, we did warn, and I warned at the time, that by increasing the charges at the bar, that there would be a price resistance. And I think that has been borne out by the 8k loss. It is actually, on the bar, one of the few areas of the Civic Hall which does make money for the council, and we've seen a loss on that income because I believe we were short-sighted on that area. The museum, the 12k additional running costs, as we have put forward over a number of successive budgets without actually affecting the running of the museum, if we were to put it into trust, we could actually make some savings on the NNDR, and that has been verified by officers. I have gone through that in various shadow budgets without even touching any of the other underlying issues with regards to the museum. Just by putting it into trust, we could save on the NNDR.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any points of clarification, Councillor? Thank you very much. My apologies again, I wasn't coughing deliberately.
No.
I'm not 100%.
We've all been ill, Chair.
Right. Any further comments from members? I mean, I would just point out to actually the massive increase in demand for temporary accommodation, which I think is something actually up and down the country is occurring. It isn't just Nuneaton and Bedworth, and just bears in mind that austerity is far from over really when we are incurring those sorts of costs. Any other comments from people?
Chair, whilst I welcome the income from rates, etc., it's a good job we've got that. What's really concerning me and maybe others is the fact that there is consultation going on at the present moment in time whereby there might be a cut-off point and we will not be able to retain as much of the rates as what business rates as what we have done in the past, and that with the problem of homelessness and the £1.2 million it's costing us could put this council in severe difficulties. So whilst I welcome also, not to be churlish, the reduction in business rate for small and medium-sized companies, it is purely and simply offsetting what we have lost in the past from the revenue support grant from my point of view. But once again, I can only thank the council. It is prudent, it's efficient, effective and economically sound at the end of the year in what has been yet again, Chair, a very, very difficult situation. You know, austerity is not over, Chair.
I'd echo that, and I'm looking forward to having some early indication of the settlement for future years, because at the moment financial planning for local authorities is very difficult. With those observations, are we happy to agree with the recommendations of section 2?
Yep.
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. Welcome to our meeting, Claire.
Sorry.
We are actually just about to deal with item 8, which is on page 65, which is the Delivering Our Future 2019 to 31 Action Plan. This report presents the Cabinet with a delivery plan for achieving the priorities and outcomes from the Delivering Our Future 2019 to 2031. The overall vision of the plan is fundamentally the same as the previous corporate plan, and that is to achieve the greatest improvement in quality of life in Warwickshire by 2031. The plan sets out 3 themes in order to achieve this vision, supported by a number of priorities and headline performance measures. The themes are transformation, collaboration and investment. The delivery plan will replace the current corporate plan delivery plan and will be monitored and reported to Cabinet and scrutiny quarterly. The plan is attached at Appendix A and recommendations are at Section 2. Again, Councillor Kundaka had indicated he wished to speak, but he isn't here as yet. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see this document come forward, actually, because it was an area that I expressed some reservations about at the previous Cabinet meeting when this was discussed, because it's all right having the themes and aspirations. What we really need to see is the underlying detail behind that, both as elected members and indeed as residents, because ultimately it is the residents who we want to benefit from all of the work that goes on through here. And I'm particularly pleased that heritage has taken an aspect here which you agreed to take on board at the last full council when I moved it as an amendment, because we do have some really good selling points from this borough about our heritage, be it Nicholas Chamberlain, the almshouses, George Eliot, the museum, all those aspects. And it would be good to use those as a foundation to acknowledge our past but celebrate our future, and I think that's a good way to go. There is one slight issue that I do have in the report, and it's on page 86 and 87, which is about collaboration of priority 3 employees and elected members. We will work with our employees and elected members. And there isn't really a lot here about elected members who will be the ones who will be scrutinising and driving some of this through. One concern that I do have in particular is in relation to part 4, which is improving staff communication mechanisms. There isn't anything about improving elected member communication mechanisms. For example, CLIP, which I know is being replaced, but in the old days we could access it remotely on whatever IT access we had. I certainly can't do it. I don't know about any other members, but members I talk to on my side don't have that luxury. Minutes of senior management meetings, for example, which we used to be able to access on there and see what was going on, you can't get that unless, like myself, you've asked Lindsay to be put on a distribution list to have them. And I don't know what's on that clip system anymore because I very rarely use the computer within the office that we have here. I try and do it all remotely. We try and encourage that remote working for employees, and it should be the same for councillors as well. So I think we need to give a bit more thought to how we can keep that level of engagement with elected members moving forward, because clip, I don't think when I used it I really liked it, if I'm honest. I don't know about any other members, but what I did find valuable, but I've lost that aspect of being able to do my job as a councillor, if I'm being honest, remotely. I have to physically be within the building. So whether this SharePoint is something that can be modified, whether we have to look at something else, but councillors are the ones that have to scrutinise what you do, put forward ideas to the Cabinet, and I think that is some area within this delivery plan which is unfortunately lacking. And I hope that Cabinet can look at that, perhaps work with backbench members and the opposition, see what is it we need, is there anything out there on the market which can do it, whatever way we go forward. But I think that's something we need to address.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, I think I would agree with you, just as a comment, that councillors do not have access to clip remotely. That is a very valid point. I have to physically come into the building, like yourself, to access it. I think there is a review, as I understand it, of members' IT provision that is going to be done, hopefully, over the next few months. And I think that's a valid point to see if we can try and ensure that SharePoint, or whatever you place on it, is accessible to us remotely, because the vast majority of our time we are working remotely. I think that's a valuable point, and we will take that on board. Is there any other comment?
Chair,
Thank you.
I'd like to agree with the councillor regarding complete a review of the conservation areas review and complete a local list of heritage assets. That's something I've also highlighted, especially in my ward as well, which is a conservation area in Abbey, all of the lovely houses, that we must refresh that, because I think it's been almost 10 years now since it became a conservation area. Other than that, I also like the report in the fact, Chair, you know, just going through and looking at what comes under my portfolio. There is a lot of work to be done in the next 3 years. But at least we have some measurements or guidelines, and members of the public can see now we've got this document where we're aiming transformation of Nuneaton, reviewing local plans, looking at employment land, town centre plans. There is a lot of work this council is undertaking, but I think it will be for the benefit of the borough in the long term.
Yeah. It is a really forward-thinking plan. I think you know, we are really developing the council so that it meets the needs of our community going forwards. I'm pleased that we now have something that is more detailed, that I'm sure that both Cabinet and Scrutiny will be monitoring on a regular basis to see how far we are along to achieving the goals that we have all agreed. There's lots and lots within this. We could go through it line by line, actually, saying how we are hoping the very best for this council and how it can support its residents and indeed work with our residents. Having said all of those, are we happy to agree the recommendations at section 2 of the report?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I understand there are no recommendations from opening and scrutiny. Any of the business, I'm happy to say that I've not been informed of any of the business. And I thank everybody for attending Cabinet tonight. I wish you all a safe journey. Thank you.
I'll get all that.
Okay.